Good day, everybody. Up here at westernpacificweather.com, and it's currently the 31st of January 2011, and we are mainly talking about Tropical Cyclone Yasi out here today. I know we also had Anthony make landfall here just south of Cairns, north of Brisbane. Just some reports of gale force winds out of there, some heavy precipitation, but only really some minor damage. So just looking out into the future, though, Tropical Cyclone Yasi, very immense system right now, extending several thousand nautical miles across. Current winds out of it about 60, gusting up to 75 knots, so about the equivalent of a weak Category 1 type typhoon out here right now, moving just north of Point Vila right here, and showing you the enhanced IR out from the Bureau of Meteorology right in here, showing that high cloud caps all the way around this system out here just south of the Solomon Islands, north of New Caledonia. And this is really showing that it really does have some good exhaust, really good outflow along the northern periphery here, all this banding right in here. And the southern periphery also seeing more improvement in the outflow here as well, or unimprovement if you're looking at it as more of a destructive system at this time, which I think is on the thoughts of most of the people out here. But here, looking at the microwave imagery showing the higher cloud tops, I like to use this because you can look past that cirrus and see the banding in the lower levels here. Also, you have an eye forming up here, several about 50 to 100 nautical miles across here, showing some really good circulation and inner eye wall developing in the system right now. Also, a lot of banding on the northern periphery here, showing that inflow and outflow out of the system. So, all this combined, you have some good good outflow aloft, the exhaust there. You also have these high sea surface temperatures above about 90 degrees Fahrenheit here, so that's really giving a lot of that latent heat for that sea surface heating and all that moisture to be soaked up in the system here. So that's really going to also add to the overall potential for more development here. But looking at the rainfall amount here from the MTSAT here, also showing the highest amount of rainfall along the northern periphery in that high area of convection. But this is also just kind of putting past upper level cirrus here and just showing you where the heaviest rain is falling right on here. So down near Port Vila, still seeing some rain. Over the Solomon Islands, also seeing some of this precipitation. But as this system continues to work its way towards the west, this product will be much more useful, especially when it starts to make landfall near Queensland here, looking at the flood potential and where the highest amount of precipitation is going to be occurring. But right now, looking along the northern periphery at the higher amount at this time, still several days out, but that's mainly due to more equatorial outflow and much better lower wind shear up in this region, even higher sea surface temperatures on the equatorial boundary. So enough about nowcasting here. Where is this system going to be going? Well, first I'm going to show you some of the models. I'm going to show you some of the overall meteorological background on them, and then I'll display a couple of the warnings here from a few of the agencies. First showing 12Z here at second. This is from the NOGAPS, or the GFS model, excuse me. And showing the landfall just south of Cairns here, right around Townsville, 984 millibars. So very strong system at this time from this particular model, looking at winds right about 100 to 110 knots. So this is one of the more reliable ones. I like using GFS, but we're going to also compare this with the NOGAPS model here. Also showing the evening of the second rating here, a little bit weaker, and not as broad as the GFS is displaying. But the thing I do want to note is that both the models are in consensus on the general area where the system will be making landfall. Even if it is still about 3 to 4 days out, you're still having that model consensus. So that's really kind of good news if you want to know exactly where the system's going. Really bad news for the coast of Queensland, because more and more we go into the future here, the less looking that this storm is going to recurve out this. And that's mainly due to this broad area of high pressure ridging in over Queensland and New South Wales down in here. Now, the one thumb rule I like to use for cyclones, typhoons, hurricanes alike is that they want to go kind of downhill like water does, flowing down into a lower pressure. And for example, here you have the monsoonal trough setting up here over northern Australia in this broad area of high pressure here. Well, storm's not going to want to roll into that high pressure. It's going to go with the lowest area possible, which at this current time, unfortunately, after Cyclone Anthony moved through, is right here off the Queensland coast, just south of Cairns, around Townsville and north of Brisbane. So that's not really a all-knowing rule, but it's one I like to use in general when you're forecasting these storms here. And quickly here, I want to show you also the European model. They're taking the storm slightly farther towards south, towards a Brisbane type area. That is well within the cone of air right now, but I'm kind of thinking it's still going to remain north up near Townsville. But you kind of do see this develop up here. And also the other thing I want to note with this is the European model going with a much broader system as it is right now, extending a lot of these higher winds very far out from the core. Even tropical storm force winds 34 knots or greater, about 500 nautical miles in each direction at this time. So that's another thing I really want to note is is not the overall strength of this system, but the overall size of it. And this is also going to produce more hazardness for the overall rainfall precipitation, especially in these watershed areas where all this rain is going to run downhill into some of these river basins. For example, in Rockhampton, already still seeing that potential flooding down there, and this is just going to make the situation worse here. And next here, showing the forecast from the Bureau of Meteorology for the next 4 days here. You're starting off with this high pressure here just off New South Wales, north of New Zealand here. And as we scroll down here, you start to see Tropical Cyclone Yasi moving off towards the west along the Queensland coast. They're showing it just north of Brisbane, just around Townsville as well here, but still long range out north and south direction could change slightly here. But the thing I do want to note, though, that the Bureau of Meteorology is picking up on this landfall as well, and also they're taking it well north of this strong area of high pressure here. If this remains in place, 1,024 millibars, there is really a very small chance of reef curvature out of this system. So looking at a very high probability of a landfall at this time, it's a very low probability that the storm is going to be recurving here. And looking at some of the official warnings here, this one out of Port Vila here, showing the system moving off towards the west-southwest, away from the islands. So really good news. It's missing many of these populated islands of Port Vila and Noumea farther down to the south here, and also many of the Solomon Islands kind of getting bypassed by this system. Bad news as it moves out towards west here, much higher sea surface temperatures in the waters, thus lower vertical wind shear, and that's really going to be overall just going to make the situation worse. Moving on to the JTC warning here, showing a max of right around 105, gusting up to 130 knots just prior to landfall here south of Cairns, and that's really kind of very indicative of what's going on right now with this monsoonal trough in place. This current warning does look fairly accurate, even though it is 3 days out. The cone of error isn't that wide of a range right now, so I'm very highly confident that once the Bureau of Meteorology starts warning on this system, they're going to kind of follow what JTWC is showing here as well. And another thing I do want to note, at its current track, though, this actually spells pretty good news for Cairns right up in here, as any storm surge that is going to take place out of this system, high or low, is going to be higher here along the southern periphery of the system. So if it does swing farther towards the north here, that'll put Cairns in the storm surge path. If it swings farther to the south, put Townsville more into the path. So this is kind of showing where that system is going to go right now, but if you are on the northern periphery of this system, kind of a better news. Like any other storm, the right front quadrant's always the worst. Actually, in the southern hemisphere, it's the left front quadrant, but that's usually where the worst winds are going to be, because you're adding the overall wind speed out of this system. So if it's 10 knots or 100 knots out of the system, and the system's moving forward at 10 knots, you're actually having wind speeds of 110 knots right here along the southern eye wall. So that's just another thing I do want to know. The location of where you are when the storm makes landfall is very, very important. And also the location of the reef just off your coast is also quite important, as that reef can kind of block up or stop any of this storm surge coming in. So that's also really good news, having that Great Barrier Reef right there off the coast. But that's all I got for today, everybody, though. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, you can always post them at my YouTube page, also here at westernpacificweather.com in one of the comment boxes, or you can email me here as well. Also posting this at storm2k.org, some good and technical scientific discussion on this storm as well. And I know I'm getting some questions about evacuations here along the Queensland coast. My suggestion is prepare for the worst, hope for the best as usual, but also make sure that you listen to your local emergency agencies and the Bureau of Meteorology once you start warning on this system, because geography definitely takes a close role in these systems, and also particularly how far you away from the coast and such. I suggest anybody that lives within several nautical miles from the coast or near a low river basin, take heed, go to any higher levels once the storm looks like it will be making landfall, and definitely prepare for the worst. You can never be too cautious with these storms, especially with the overall size and immensity of this system. So I hope everybody continues to stay safe out there. I will likely have another update later on this evening into tonight. So thank you for listening, and have a great day. Bye.